Hello and welcome back to Invincible Asia. I'm George Clark and this is another episode of Deep Impact, where today I'm going to take a look back at the issue from July 1994. Now this issue of course would have been released halfway through June of 1994, my final month and time at high school, and I remember leaving there and going round to the usual corner store where I would have picked up these Impact magazines, and I'd only been buying them from January 1994, but I knew that this was the only place I could get my hands on it. But after picking it up and flicking through the pages, realizing that there was no China beat in this particular issue, or really nothing in there that made me want to spend the money that I had. That was so little at that time. My pocket money wasn't really a lot, but I didn't want to part with that because there really wasn't enough in here. Now, the friend that was with me, he was a fan of The Crow, so he picked it up. Now, obviously, I thought that I'd be able to pick this up somewhere else down the line, but that was not the case. Then, about probably 14 or 15 years later, my friend came up to me and he said, "There's that issue of Impact Action Movie Magazine, if you want to have it." Of course I said yes, but do I love it any more in my adult years than I did looking through it as a teenager? We're about to find out. Let's go Deep Impact. Don't forget folks, before we go any further, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, ring the bell and all that jibber jabber, and thank you very much for supporting Invincible Asia. So yes, gracing the front cover is Brandon Lee in The Crow, darker than the bat, and you get a free poster mag inside, although I don't believe that that's still in there. The handsome Gary Daniels is bottom left for Deadly Target, and next to him is Lorenzo Lamas in Renegade. Around the trim, we see those listed that are appearing in the magazine, such as Van Damme, Linda Thorson, Lucky Star Dragon, Michael Carreras, Ray Liotta, Ghost in the Machine, Cynthia Rothrock, Matthias Hughes, Dario Argento, and Lee Marvin. Let's get stuck in. So we begin with the usual subscription ad seen in most of the issues from this period, asking you to join stars like Van Damme, Hulk Hogan and Jeff Wincott, who were apparently avid readers of the magazine. As always, you also have the chance to grab some Impact binders to keep your magazines safe in. Opposite, we have the contents page, which clearly offers a lot, yet when we read down the list and get to the regulars, we can see that China Beat, one of the main reasons I always loved Impact, is not there. I wonder if Bay explains why in his Baywatch editorial. Writing a response to the current wave of anti-movie violence hysteria is a dirty job, but I guess someone other than Michael Winner has to do it. First of all, let me state that I believe the phrase movie violence to be a contradiction in terms. If something happens in a film, it's not an actual act of violence. It's an artificial event staged by technicians in the course of producing a motion picture. It's action, the same word they use when they begin to shoot it. Violence is what happens every day in Northern Ireland or Bosnia or Beirut. People do know the difference, and politicians especially. They know that attacking screen violence is a great way to divert attention from the fact that they have proved themselves singularly inept at dealing with the real horrors afflicting the world. Well written, I have to agree with them. The argument is that excessive on-screen violence causes problems closer to home in the tenements and slums of our urban nightmares. Again, this campaign is just a smokescreen to obscure society's failure to come to terms with its own blight. If you allow a community to develop in which children are given no firm moral code to live by, in which they never learn respect for themselves, their parents, and those around them, they don't need child's play to turn them into immoral killers. If you build a city in which ethnic minority members are offered no hope other than to rule the streets they walk by force, they don't need to watch Reservoir Dogs to pick up a gun. Some of the finest films ever made, masterpieces like Raging Bull and Unforgiven, contain scenes of extreme violence, but what redeems them in the eyes of the moral minority is that they offer a view of eventual redemption that transcends their violent nature. Maybe we should allow that type of violent films to be made and ban our censor movies with no redeeming value. Okay, but who's to decide which is which? One man's Bad Lieutenant is another's Dirty Harry. It seems to me that our saving grace is that we live in a free society, albeit one in which our aspirations far outstrip our accomplishments. Call it a constitution or a people's charter, It's a statement that allows the nation's citizens certain basic rights, including the freedom of speech. History has shown us that when freedom is taken away, all others are not far behind. The countries with the most state-governed censorship, China, the Soviet Union, Nazi Germany, have always had the worst human rights record as well. The rights of the innocent are constantly being eroded by the actions of the active. The best action films offer a release of tension and a mirror to the world in which they are made. Don't let a confederacy of dunces stem the release and break the mirror. I mean, honestly, it's probably one of the best written Baywatches I've read so far, but then he finishes it off with this. Jumping off the soapbox for a moment, I'd like to draw your attention to our MAI Impact hotlines. Yes, I know they're not as much fun as the 0898 numbers that you and the rest of the Impact staff usually ring, but they are the very best source of up-to-the-minute info on your favourite movie and martial arts stars. Make someone, our bank manager, happy with a phone call and ring the hotlines today. Jesus Christ. Oh my god, what a sign-off. Clearly the phone numbers, the expensive phone numbers, weren't really working for them. And of course the 0898 numbers back then were for adult hotlines. Anyway, moving on. So the first big article is on Ray Liotta's sci-fi action flick No Escape, a film I haven't seen since the mid-90s, but I do remember enjoying it at the time. No Escape, from the cinema. The latest high-tech prison flick in the tradition of Doctor Who's Wedlock and Christopher Lambert's Fortress is No Escape. We sent Cool Hand Mike Davies inside to serve some time. He filed the following report via Midnight Express. Ugh. It's 2022, and in the middle of a parade, Marine Captain Ray Liotta blows his commanding officer's brains out. Cut to a bleak high-tech maximum security prison run by sadistic warden Michael Lerner, who refers to his job as reprocessing human garbage. Liotta's bad attitude soon lands him on Lerner's shortlist, and a one-way trip to Absalom, the warden's private hellhole, a hidden penal colony on a remote island where difficult prisoners are left to die. Most of the article is about the synopsis of the film, but it's quite clear that writer Mike Davies didn't have much love for it. His closing words read, "Pity then that the script forgets to join in with the game. Even the bouts of slaughter can't prevent this being a truly dreary experience. No escape, try the doors marked exit." Well, there you go. Maybe I'll have to revisit this sometime soon. Overleaf, Brit kicker Gary Daniels stars in Deadly Target, a fun, low-budget 1990s action flick that gives him the chance to showcase his martial arts skills and look good doing it. Gary goes to Hollywood. Britain's Daniels goes from strength to strength in Tinseltown. He tells all exclusively to Impact. Having gone the bad guy route in such all-action epics as Deadly Bet, Final Impact and Jackie Chan's City Hunter, Orgaza is now getting to wear the white hat for a change in the recent video release Firepower. See the March Impact for full details, and the upcoming thriller Deadly Target. Now the Brit with more muscles than Popeye's entire family gives us the lowdown on his latest career moves. After I finished shooting Firepower for PM Entertainment early last year, Joseph Merhi and Rick Pepin told me that they would like to do a picture with me as the lead, but they had no script at that time. My Sifu, Winston Omega and I rehashed an idea that we had talked about a few years ago, which drew upon Winston's experiences growing up and living in Asia. We got together with regular PM Entertainment scriptwriter Michael January and gave him our ideas, and I asked him to see the movies Hardboiled and Year of the Dragon to get an idea of the feel I wanted. Michael came up with a treatment we were happy with and subsequently wrote a good solid action movie with all the elements Winston and I wanted, and characters and relationships which didn't take second place to the action. Then things began to get complicated. When director Charlotte Driver was hired, she had a lot of ideas of her own. Plus the Japanese distributors wanted Shogo Tanaka, a Japanese former kickboxer who is still very popular in Japan. Then Ken McLeod was hired because he had a contract with PM, who wanted him in our film to satisfy their agreement with him. Not surprisingly, all this activity necessitated extensive rewrites, which Michael passed on as they did nothing to improve or help the story. Charlotte Driver took the script to a friend of hers to rewrite, but unfortunately neither Michael, Winston or myself were consulted on these changes, and I felt that the new script didn't really live up to the standard of the original. One thing you learn as an actor like myself who is yet unproven as a bankable leading man is that, in the end, you really have very little control. Anyhow, Deadly Target is about Charlie Prince, yours truly, a cop from Hong Kong who comes to the States to extradite Wu Chang, Byron Man, a notorious Chinese gangster who came to the US to set up a drug connection with the local triads. Charlie teams up with LA cop Jensen, Ken McLeod, against his wishes, but he needs Jensen to show him around the mean streets of LA. Charlie has his life saved by Diana Tang, Susan Byun, and after a rocky start, they end up falling in love. There are some good performances in Deadly Target by Byron, Susan, and Wu Chang's right-hand man, who is played by Ron Yuen, a veteran of PM movies who handled the character of Lucky like a natural. The movie is full of action, with car stunts, exploding helicopters, and plenty of martial arts for the kung fu fighting enthusiasts. My fights in the movie are choreographed by Winston, but unfortunately we didn't have a lot of say in the way they were shot and edited. Also, I must take this opportunity to thank and commend the Japanese stuntman, martial artist Koichi Sakamoto, who worked very hard and did 90% of the dangerous stunts in the movie, as well as helping to design the fights for other actors. Koichi is the closest thing Hollywood has to a Hong Kong stuntman, and I think he'll go a long way. Meantime, I've also been in the Albert Pyun directed Heat Seeker, in which I play the main bad guy, who is 50% cyborg. And I start shooting Fist of the North Star on June 2nd, which is being directed by Tony Randall. Before I sign off, special thanks to my Sifu Winston Omega, who prepared me for Deadly Target, part mentally and physically. Thanks also to Bay, the Impact staff and readers for all the support you're giving me. Rule Britannia. What a fun piece, and such a great guy. I just wish he had gotten to be a bit bigger than his career allowed him to, although it was such a treat to see him appear in the Expendables movie when I first caught it on the big screen many moons ago. Anyway, definitely going to be checking out Deadly Target again soon. It has been a while, but let's move on. Next up, we have a great spread laid out for the lightning rod, where our attention is immediately drawn to this awesome shot of the late, great and sorely missed Richard Norton. Norton News. Impact fan fave Richard Norton is busier than ever. He's visible in Don Wilson's Cyber Tracker and the forthcoming Imperial release of Jackie Chan's City Hunter. Norton gets a solo starring role in the forthcoming Right's Way. Short and sweet, although I don't believe Right's Way was ever made. Next to that, Evan Laurie and Joey House star in Armstrong, Hero of Tomorrow. At last year's MyFed, Canon Chief Menachem Golan announced that he was looking for the next action star to play the lead in a film to be called Armstrong. Apparently he found his man. Martial law and double impact veteran Evan Laurie got the role. Well, obviously Armstrong was never made and Canon Films closed their doors, but Evan did go on to star in films such as T-Force, Techno Fear, Hologram Man, Guns and Lipstick, and Tiger Claws 2 with Cindy soon after this. Below him, Lee wields the Sword of Honor. After Jason Scott Lee paved the way, his fellow triple-name Asian Pacific performer Stephen Vincent Lee is set to become a Chinese-American leading man. A PM Entertainment regular, Steve toplines Sword of Honor for the company. Of course, in the last episode and issue, we covered a full article by his co-star Sophia Crawford on this exact film. The opposite page gives us a piece on Cage 2, The Arena of Death, starring Lou Ferrigno and Shanna Lee. The daughter also rises, Miss Lee on screen in Cage 2. Ask the average Bruce Lee fan to guess what Shannon would have followed up her dragon cameo with, and they'd never guess that the little dragon's daughter would turn up opposite Lou Ferrigno and Reb Brown in Cage 2. No word yet on whether she fights or sings. Next to that, Crackerjack. Excessive Force star Thomas Ian Griffith is back on the scene and on the screen for a high-tech espionage feature. Well, that was hardly news. Great poster though, and below that, Little Bughead. Keanu makes up his mind. Johnny Mnemonic sees Reeves back in the action genre opposite Dolph Lundgren and beat violent cop Takeshi. Ugh, short and sweet again, and another movie I actually haven't seen in forever. Definitely need to put that one on the list. The lightning rod continues over Leaf, where we get a small impact chart called Three Men and a Buddha, Hollywood, Hong Kong and the Middle Way. A piece that compares Keanu Reeves' Little Buddha, Eddie Murphy's Golden Child and Cynthia Rothrock's Prince of the Sun. The ending for all of them is the same, with the child returning to Tibet. And finally, the result for all of them, Little Buddha gets a lot of Zs because someone obviously has fallen asleep there. The Golden Child, a poor showing for Murphy in his first cuss-free outing. I quite like the Golden Child, mind you. And Prince of the Sun, an underrated oddity for La Rothrock. Well, I agree, as rough as it may seem sometimes, Prince of the Sun is hugely underrated and a hell of a lot of fun. Below that, Double Trouble, the gorgeous Mark Dacascos and Scott Wolf in a shot from the unfortunate Double Dragon. A year after Double Dragon wrapped, Imperial have still to deliver a finished print. How bad can it be? The company cite extensive special effects as being the cause of the delays, but we wonder. Well, now we all know why. I mean, it has charm and Dacascos is amazing, but what a fucking waste that was. And finally, clause in the contract, a piece on Jalal Murhi's Operation Golden Phoenix. TC 2000 actor-producer Jalal Murhi is back in action in Operation Golden Phoenix. Starring alongside him is No Retreat man Loren Avedon, who is set to star opposite Tiger Claws performer Cynthia Rothrock in IDP's Deadly Dragon. Nothing really to do with the contract, but anyway, over on the other side we have Word Up, a page of bits and bobs that sometimes impresses as much as it does annoy. The first blurb is on Olivier Gruner. Whither Olivier Gruner? Looks like the Nemesis star is off and running. He still owes his mother company Imperial a film, but is already signed to make the Nemesis-style Cyberjack and a film entitled Savate concerning a French art of foot fighting. Couldn't happen to a nicer fella. Up top and picture perfect is another bit on Mark Dacascos. Hong Kong Helmer Ronnie, Legacy of Rage Yu, looks set to follow in the footsteps of John Woo. Yu is set to direct Slayer for our friends at August Entertainment. Dragon in Waiting Mark Dacascos is set to star. Unfortunately now, Slayer never did happen, and Ronnie Yu made his Hollywood debut with the fun, and pretty much forgotten, Warriors of Virtue. Below in the black, poor Jeff Falcon. The diminutive Hong Kong-based action performer seems to have his good ideas second-guessed on a regular basis. He was touting an idea for an American Shaolin movie long before Seasonal made theirs, and now Menachem Golan's International Dynamic Pictures have announced a flick entitled Super Ninja, which, from the poster artwork anyway, bears a great resemblance to the Falcon-created Kung Fu Superman. Super Ninja will star Golan Discovery, Kelly McClung, who also stars in Stick Fighter for the newly formed company. So while we did get Stick Fighter with the unfortunately named Kelly McClung, it seems that Super Ninja nor Falcon's Kung Fu Superman ever came about. Following that, director Albert Pyun is busy as ever. His virtual reality flick Arcade is out on video soon, and he just wrapped 2 new features. Ravenhawk sees Rachel, Iron Angels 3 McLeish, get a starring role of her own, while Heatseeker, shot in the Philippines, sees Keen of the Kickboxers standout Keith Cook return to the screen. Our own Gary Daniels plays the main fighting villain of the piece. Up top, one-time Dallas star joins the many soap opera alumni who have forged careers in action cinema. Lorenzo Lamas is the Renegade, Sasha Mitchell the new kickboxer, and Scalia gets a starring turn in the Universal Soldier-inspired PM entertainment flick T-Force. Flavour of the month, Evan Laurie co-stars. Incidentally, this film has nothing to do with the Now Comics Mr. T and the T-Force publication. Karate Kid 3, the one with the female student of Mr. Miyagi, is now entitled The Next Karate Kid. Meanwhile, the Three Ninjas sequel is Three Ninjas Kick Back, or in the UK, Three Ninja Kids Kick Back. Strange, I always thought the fourth one was The Next Karate Kid. Anyway, to our unmitigated horror, Don the Drag Wilson is busier than ever. Wilson, who is yet to make an even halfway decent movie, is set to star in Lion Strike, also for the prolific PM. And below that finally, Chuck Norris has gone to the dogs. Aaron Norris is set to direct his brother in Top Dog, which will pair our Chuck with a ferocious German Shepherd. How will we tell them apart? Oh dear God. Anyway, that offered a wee bit more than usual, but let's move on. Page 12 gives us Bay's MAI hotlines, where you can call him to find out the latest on Bruce and Brandon Lee, survival skills, and get the inside gossip on all the stars. And apparently, the lines are updated every month. Opposite, Hard Target gets another look, this time from Ian Frier in a roundabout way to promote its upcoming video release. Hard Target, a personal view by Ian Frier. A couple of issues ago in these pages, I was asked to come up with a list of my all-time top 10 action films. I wimped out by putting them in alphabetical order to get out of having to pick a favourite. Well, now I'm going to make my choice. In my opinion, Hard Target is the best action film ever made. There, I've said it. Now that Hard Target is about to come out on video, the time has come perhaps for a reassessment of John Woo's American film debut. Not by me, you understand. I have always loved the film, right from when I first saw it at a London preview cinema last year. That was an experience in itself. While I was sat trying to watch what was clearly quite an exceptional film, certain of my fellow critics were openly chortling, while one person, who appeared to have his manners surgically removed, laughed out loud for large portions of the film. Almost as distracting was the reaction of one audience member who snored loudly, an almost cartoon-like snore. You could imagine the Zs coming out of his open mouth, for about half an hour. Now, I'm not saying that these people were not entitled to their own opinions. There isn't a whole lot of point being a movie critic unless you're willing and able to let fly with the odd opinion. That evening was like being in the Twilight Zone, with everyone else seeing a different film to me. On deadly ground, perhaps? Maybe I was just unlucky, I thought, and saw it with a bad audience. When the newspaper reviews came out a few weeks later, I began to get a terrible sinking feeling. The treatment given to Hard Target by the press was nothing short of criminal. Christopher Tukey in the Daily Mail unforgivably drew parallels between the release of the film and the recent James Bulger murder trial. For the first time since I became a film critic, I felt ashamed of my profession. I failed to read a single review which picked out the obvious allegorical level on which Woo's film works. Rich people paying to hunt and kill members of America's burgeoning underclass, while passers-by despise the victims, unable to recognise what is happening, while those victims agree to the deal out of sheer desperation. Hard Target details, in the form of popular entertainment, the American nightmare at work. For God's sake, one of the villains is a white South African. How many more hints do you need? Jean-Claude Van Damme is not a great actor, but he is a great action film star, which, alas, means he can star in class productions like Hard Target and Nowhere to Run, and find that they are accorded about the same respect as Debbie Does Dallas. Hard Target features one truly great performance, even better than those of villains Lance Henriksen and Arnold Vosloo. Willie Carpenter provides the most memorable image in a film filled with striking visuals. Hunted to his death, he stands up and looks his killers in the face, regaining his lost manhood in that fleeting moment. Hard Target is a very special film, deserving of better than the raw deal it got on its cinema release. Rent it. So there you go, Hard Target at this point in time was the best action film ever made according to Ian. I knew that man wasn't really a fan of Hong Kong cinema because I could have given him 20 Asian films before this that offer so much more. Anyway, interesting views, let's move on. Over the page, MAI and Bay are no dozers because here we have a hotline strictly for Van Damme fans. The Van Damme tapes. Listen to Van the Man giving the inside story on Double Impact, Universal Soldier and more. Just ring, blah blah blah, and you'll be through to the man himself. What a load of shit. Next to that, those infamous 2 ads to attract girls and build muscles fast. Is it just me, or are these ads starting to look older and older as each issue goes along? On the next page, a piece remembering actor George Peppard, who passed in 1994. For those of you born after the millennium, this guy was famously known as Hannibal Smith, leader of the A-Team, and he was cool as fuck. Of course, he also starred in films such as Breakfast at Tiffany's, The Blue Max, The Executioner, and Battle Beyond the Stars. It's a pretty straightforward retrospective, and as much as I enjoyed him in the A-Team as Hannibal, I'm moving on. A double page spread on Renegade follows. Well, 1 page and a full poster page on the show. I really enjoyed this show as a teen. It was hardly offering anything new, but Lorenzo Lamas is a handsome big thing and has some decent moves when it comes to martial arts. Lorenzo Lamas, the hardest working man in action films, is back with a new TV series. As usual, Impact brings you the lowdown. Does anyone still remember the old Lorenzo Lamas, the old smoothie chops with the greasy quiff from Dallas clone Falcon Crest? Rarely has an actor managed to reinvent himself so thoroughly and successfully as Lamas. reborn as stubbly, long-haired biker rockstar martial arts type. Over the last year or so, barely a month seems to have gone by without a new Lamass action title hitting the video shelves. Bounty Tracker and Final Round were the last couple. The busy actor even co-produced 3 for his own production company: Weber's 15 Minutes, Night of the Warrior, and Human Target. Amazingly, Lamass has found the time to star in a TV series, Renegade, which has been bought for British TV by Carlton, so should reach other ITV regions over the next few months. Described as a contemporary western, the series features Lamass as Reno Raines, a tough young street cop forced to go underground when framed for murder by a group of corrupt officers. The rest of the article talks about the setup of the show and those involved with it, ending with a paragraph that states, "It's an old format, but a good one, and should see Lorenzo Lamass starring in bigger budget films in future. The cops might not be able to find the Renegade, but you should be able to catch up with him soon on late night TV." Fun times, and a fun show when I first started watching it. I'm sure it still has the same appeal today, but God knows when I'll get back to seeing it again. Over the page we get another impact chart, this time on 10 great fight scenes in the movies. I'm not going to read through this one, but I am going to state once again the lack of Hong Kong cinema noted in a chart like this, no doubt written by Frier, but I could be wrong. Of course, there's 2 mentions of Bruce Lee, one from Enter the Dragon and one from Game of Death, but that's to be expected of a Western viewer around this time that believes they're a fan of Hong Kong cinema, having only seen Lee's work. I mean, not one mention of Jackie Chan, Sammo Hung or otherwise, yet here we have Laurel and Hardy and King Kong vs Godzilla. Jesus Christ, what a joke. Anyway, moving on. Over the page, MAI Videotech's usual 2-page ad for video orders follows that, this time listing 2 full pages of action and adventure movies. On page 22, they bombard the page with ads for the Chartbusters Video Club, colour photos of your stars, pen pals, and the Awesome 50 action movie fanzine. Opposite though, we get a full page shot featuring Matthias Hughes, which no doubt means we're about to go into an article on the man himself. And there he is, big, mean, and on the screen. Frier talks to Matthias Hughes, who crossed the Atlantic to follow his dream and became the new sensation of the action scene. Don't get me wrong, I like Matthias Hughes, but I wouldn't rush out to get his latest film, for example. While all the ladies and possibly a few men would be swooning over him, I've always found him to be odd-looking and his long flowing blonde hair to be somewhat unconvincing as a villain. Still, he's done pretty well. I think the first thing I ever saw him in was No Retreat, No Surrender 2, followed by Dark Angel, Bounty Tracker, and a few more. Overall, it's a decent article and carries over to a 3rd page where it talks about a few more of his latest movies and ends with some advice from the big man himself. As for those of you reading this who, like Matthias, have had a blinding revelation while watching a film that their destiny lies in Hollywood, Matthias recommends the experience. It will change you so much, shape your personality and change your character. It makes you grow up. There are negative things too, but you become a much stronger person. Yeah, there's a lot of negative things, Matthias, but you're not giving those away. Anyway, opposite is Brought to Book with Frier again, shifting his attention to 2 publications, Shock Express 2, The Essential Guide to Exploitation Cinema, and below that, UFO and Space 1999, based on the old Jerry Anderson shows. Anyway, moving on. Page 28 gives us the Impact Letters page, where Kotaro from Japan lets Impact know about Sho Kosugi and reveals some Japanese projects that he was involved in after leaving America. Assad from Glasgow asks for a Jackie Chan poster while stating that he doesn't think much of Dolph Lundgren as an action hero, while BWJ of Hull questions who the next James Bond is to be and when Van Damme's next set of films will be arriving. Anthony from Middlesbrough gives off at the BBFC, only passing a cut version of Best of the Best 2, and lets us know how much of a Philip Ree fan he is. And finally, Paul from London writes to say he has just been to a Jackie Chan double bill in Chinatown. One was City Hunter, but the other, advertised as Armour of God, turned out to be its sequel. Oh, and apparently there's no trace of Part 1 anywhere on video, but I have to say there was definitely plenty of them. On the side, the usual fan club addresses see us out, although I see they still haven't replaced John Wayne with the new Jackie Chan fan club address. Hey, who knows, maybe next month. Over the page, we delve back into the horror genre. Look, I'm a horror filmmaker, I love horror movies, but as an action film magazine, this was such a stupid friggin' move. First up is a piece on Dario Argento's Trauma, apparently a new vision of terror. I've never seen it, so I can't confirm unfortunately, although I am a fan of his earlier work. Opposite, a piece on the death of Hammer Films' big boss, Michael Carreras. Second, Son of Hammer. The death in April of former Hammer Films chief Michael Carreras served as one of the last links with what was arguably Britain's greatest post-war studio. Tony Earnshaw pays tribute to Carreras and talks exclusively to his old friend and colleague, top Hammer producer Anthony Hines. At a time when the name of Hammer Films is poised to make a comeback, the death of Michael Carreras is especially ironic. Carreras, purists will argue, was the man who put the final nail in Hammer's coffin by steering the studio away from its traditional horror fare and into the world of action thrillers and foreign co-productions. But in reality, Carreras, who died on April 19th, aged 66, attempted to bring Hammer and its product up to date. When he took over Hammer in 1972, the once thriving company's best years were over. What's more, it was facing alarming competition from the growing number of modern horror movies, such as Night of the Living Dead, which were outmaneuvering Hammer's films at the box office. I love Hammer movies. In fact, I love them just as much as I do Shaw Brothers movies, and just as I would love to own the complete Shaw Brothers library, I do hope someday to have all of the Hammer films on my shelf. Following that, we have a double-page spread on Ghost in the Machine from Tank Girl director Rachel Talalay, the same lady behind the Nightmare on Elm Street sequel, Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare. This 1993 movie is about a serial killer whose soul gets caught up in a computer system, and while it's not amazing, it's hardly the worst movie in the world and quite entertaining at times. Here, Ian Frier talks to her and star Karen Allen about the film itself and the experience of making it. She does mention how studio executives interfered and screwed things up, leading to the film getting a direct-to-video release without any promotion, which is funny because I seem to remember her saying something similar about the next film she made, which was Tank Girl. Common denominator. Anyway, it's a decent article and probably another film I should really check out again sometime soon. Page 34 and 35 brings us a piece on classic Hollywood star Lee Marvin, the one-man cyclone. Booze, bird-watching, brawling and brilliance. I can't say it's a man I've ever had a draw to. I've definitely seen some of his movies and enjoyed them at the time, but I've never looked back. Anyway, since Bay Logan was no doubt captured by a clan of female ninjas at this stage, Ian Frier delivers another article on a Western star, which explains why we don't have a China beat in this issue I guess, where he talks about Lee's career, his alcoholism, and finally death by heart attack in 1987. Wild life, but a brilliant actor nonetheless. Thankfully, over the page, fight fans rejoice as we get a two-page spread on Cynthia Rothrock's highly enjoyable and very underrated Irresistible Force, a movie that I really enjoyed. This Die Hard in a mall when I first saw it, but I cannot find this rarity anywhere on VHS. Actually, there are some US videotapes I noticed on sale on eBay at stupid prices, but I really want to get my hands on a big box UK X rental because they're much nicer. So if you do have one and you don't want it, please let me know. Cindy's back and Stacey's got her. Has Rothrock hit the TV big time? The long search for a TV series built around pocket-sized sex bomb and queen of the martial arts video Cynthia Rothrock could finally be at an end with Irresistible Force, an action thriller pilot film that wades fearlessly into Die Hard territory and wins hands down. Of all the many Die Hard clones which have come out over the past few years, I have to say that Irresistible Force is my favourite. Former Mike Hammer Keach plays a burned out, over-the-hill cop who just wants to live long enough to collect his pension and requests a female partner. What he gets is our gal Cynthia, who also happens to be the only woman ever to pass the Navy SEALs course. Keach's dreams of a quiet end to his police career are shattered. Well, they would be, wouldn't they? Otherwise this wouldn't be much of an action film when they get trapped in the new shopping mall taken over by a bunch of white supremacists led by Christopher Name. Name, playing a smooth English baddie, yes another one, many moons ago played the wonderfully named Johnny Alucard in Hammer's Dracula AD 1972. Also on show is Nicholas Hammond. Once Upon a Time a member of the Von Trapp family in The Sound of Music, and Spider-Man in the truly terrible 70s TV series which reached cinemas in Britain. Here he plays the pain-in-the-butt cop who thinks that he's in charge of the siege operation. Irresistible Force moves along at one heck of a pace, clocking in at just over 70 action-packed minutes, which equals 2 hours of American TV time with the addition of about a zillion adverts. Production values are well above TV movie average, possibly due to the fact that the whole thing was filmed at Warner Brothers Studio in Queensland, Australia, despite the story being set in an unnamed American city. The TV influence does show, however, with less martial arts on show here than in Cynthia's Hong Kong films, but she gets to knock plenty of skulls together and shows off her pole fighting skills to great effect. There is also no swearing, these days a dead giveaway of a film's TV origins, but this isn't necessarily a bad thing. Frankly, I'm just plain bored with the amount of swearing in films in place of snappy dialogue. Jesus, he wouldn't be happy with my movies. The next step is to wait and see if CBS pick up the pilot for a weekly series, but in the meantime, Irresistible Force should be out on rental video in the UK now. If I were you, I'd be irresistibly drawn to the video shop for this one. So yes, this was initially the pilot for a planned TV show, which unfortunately just didn't take off, and I really don't know why. It wasn't too long after this when Sammo Hung's Martial Law became a hit, and of course we had countless run-of-the-mill cop shows in between. But what a goddamn shame, because Cindy absolutely deserved it. Hopefully we'll get a Blu-ray release of this brilliant film one day soon. Over the page, the skinhead goblin with a flick knife convinces hundreds of readers to learn the secrets of street self-defense, while next to that, we have the continuing saga of Bay Logan's time as part of the Lucky Star Dragon production, later to be known as Circus Kids. The Beast in the East. Once again, he sends faxes and diary entries, but now we also get blurbs called Hong Kong Action Highlights, so I'll read over them, as if I was to read the whole thing, it would be a hell of a lengthy piece. Also, isn't it funny how much text can be afforded to the editor's story, yet big Hollywood and Hong Kong pieces are passed off as double-page spreads with a full poster page and a little text sprinkled throughout many pictures. Anyway, let's read on. MAI movie editor Bay Logan gets to go in front of the cameras for a change in Lucky Star Dragon. Last month I told the story of how I became involved with the filming of a Chinese kung fu movie. Due entirely to my friendship with Donnie Yen, rather than any talent on my part, I was invited to play the role of a villainous English kung fu fighting drug baron. I'd have preferred a part where there was some acting involved, but you can't have everything. As I revealed last issue, the director of Lucky Star Dragon is Ng Ma. The main players are Jimmy Yuen Pyo, Donnie, Irene Wen and Lily Lee, and the location is the South Chinatown of Shanwei. Jumping on to Hong Kong Action Insights Part 1, you've probably read in other articles that real life fighting is completely different from movie fighting. As someone who has experienced both, I'd go further and say that someone who has a good sense of timing and distance, but in different technique, will look better on film than someone with spectacular kicking and punching combinations who can't establish a rhythm, a relationship with his or her on-screen opponent. I find the actual techniques used quite basic, but the rhythms of combat employed were quite complex. An added problem is that, during the course of filming, you might fight several people and their stunt doubles. Some of them you'll be in sync with, and some not. It really has a lot more to do with dancing than fighting. Oh, he's so up himself. Anyway, over to part 2. The attitude towards the use of stuntmen is quite different within the Chinese industry. The Western media makes much of the fact that people like Jackie Chan do all their own stunts. This is absurd. Everyone from Bruce Lee onwards has used a stuntman. There are several reasons for this. A primary one is that it makes no sense to risk a multi-million-dollar production just to gratify the star's ego. Another obvious reason is that there are many actions a stuntman can perform and actors can't. However, on Lucky Star Dragon, Yuen Biao and Ken Lo used their Tai Sans, literally their body replacements, to perform sequences that they themselves could have managed. Why? Because our team of stuntmen knew each other's timing so well. It took less time and less money to capture the shots required. With complicated action scenes, the greater the number of takes, the higher the risk of injury to the leading players. However, this in no way detracts from the importance of actors and acting in a martial arts movie. It's the actors that make you care about the stunts being performed, Otherwise, it's just a physical display on the same level as a circus show, with no, assumes Bruce Lee accent, emotional content. I mean, to be fair, his diaries do make for an interesting read, but I'm going to jump to his closing paragraph to finish this one. As soon as his section of the fight was finished, Donnie Yen was up and away faster than a silver bullet. Interesting, because obviously his production company went on to be called Silver Bullet Productions. I had a few more reaction shots to film, and then my Lucky Star experience would also be concluded. As I took a last walk across the soundstage, I thought back across the 3-month-long shoot. What was the memory that would remain with me? Hanging out with performers of the caliber of Yuen Biao and Ken Lo and Ng Ma, matching fists and feet with my man Donnie Yen, travelling across China and finding that it remains a feudal empire with communism only a temporary substitute for a god king. Perhaps most keenly, I'm moved by my impressions of working towards a common goal alongside people from a culture and background a million miles removed from my own. For days on end, I was the only blue-eyed boy in a 100-mile radius, and yet I took Rice alongside mainland Chinese stuntmen with a bond like brothers. Dear fuck. Martial arts movies, at their best, break down the barriers of language and race. In the end, that's what they're really all about. And now you know. I just wish the film Circus Kids had been much better than it was, not for the sake of this pillock, but for Donnie Yen, Yuen Biao and Wu Ma. Still, it does have its moments. Next up is the video scene, and what a collection of titles they have on offer. It starts off with the Japanese anime film Kama Sutra, which I've never seen, and next to that, Fist of Honor with Sam Jones. Below, Jalal Murhi's entertaining Fearless Tiger, and next to that, and not really an action movie, it's Mel Brooks' hilarious Robin Hood Men in Tights, and I love that movie. Opposite, American Yakuza, which was covered a couple of issues back, and finally, the fun Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 from Golden Harvest. Down the side, we get small bits on the Mission Impossible and New Avengers TV shows, but overall, a nice set of releases this month. And what do you know, Ian Frier wastes another 3 pages on an old TV show, The Avengers, and meeting its star Linda Thorson. I mean, you can see why I wasn't bothered about buying this issue way back on its initial release. Hardly a sign of Hong Kong stars or films anywhere, and while I enjoyed the Avengers TV show when I was a kid and appreciate Linda's career, it's clear once again that Ian Frier had no interest whatsoever in Asian cinema. Anyway, her story continues over the page with a shot of her from her Star Trek episode and offers a competition to win some Avengers goodies. Opposite though, we have the Coming Soon page highlighting a free RoboCop poster mag and exclusive on its new TV series. But with that we also get the next action hero, Arnie Flies High and True Lies, Showdown, Firing Blanks is a Shooting Star, one-on-one with the star of the King of the Kickboxers, TC2000 and Back in Action. Manga, an overview of the Japanimation explosion. Back on the Beat, Jackie Chan and Police Story 3, RoboCop 3, the TV series, and Ian Frier tangles with the Maniac Cop trilogy. Of course he does. The Incredible Hulk, Hogan is back on the beach for Thunder in Paradise 2, Highlander 3 on location for the latest Immortal outing. He's British, he's Sylvester Stallone. Judge Dredd hits the big screen. Ugh, well, at least it's offering a bit more martial arts action and Jackie Chan, but I'm not holding my breath. And on the back page, that regular ad for the Bruce Lee Martial Arts Master video is back, exclusive only to MAI Videotech. Anyway, I'm George Clark and this has been another episode of Deep Impact. Thank you for watching and thanks again for your continued support. It really is greatly appreciated. Until next time though, enjoy your Kung Fu and I'll see you soon. So thank you once again for watching another video here on Invincible Asia. Don't forget you can check out hundreds of others here on the channel. You can also show your continued support by heading over to my new merch store or by checking out invincibleasia.com where you can read my full movie reviews and follow me on Instagram @InvincibleAsia. Until next time though, enjoy your Kung Fu and I will see you soon.